Elsa, thank you so much for joining us here at Super Return
Thanks
International.
for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Global Head of ESG. ESG has come a long way up the agenda in the past decade.
Yeah.
It's very much viewed now necessity, not nicety. Where do you think we're at in 2024 and what more still needs to be done?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think in the very early days of ESG or sustainability being counted in among the considerations taken in finance in particular, I think it was still seen as a bit of a CSR activity. There was a sense that there was a responsibility on the part of financial institutions to incorporate social and environmental factors. But I think we've moved so considerably from that point to really understand that not only are there inherent risks associated with some of these factors, such as the risks posed by climate change, but there's real opportunity too. And I think that's where we're moving in an exciting way to be able to capture the opportunity inherent in the integration of these factors and understand that it's just going to make companies more resilient, more profitable, and build greater opportunities to grow in a way that is going to be befitting the next generation economy.
And in a tougher environment like we're in now, where perhaps managers have to work a bit harder, it really does have a value creation aspect to it.
Absolutely. I think if we think about that idea of resilience, that is what it's doing. It's building resilience into your investment strategy effectively. And that inherently has value preservation and indeed value creation aspects to it.
So when you are looking at that value creation aspect, what are you looking for in possible investment companies and what do you believe they need to be showing and have? Is it something innate?
It's an interesting question. I mean, I think in many cases, especially when we're looking at the growth space, the management teams of those companies are so busy doing so many important things, thinking about the financial future and their business plans, that it's not necessarily the case that they have pre-identified the spaces where they have the chance to really expand on those sustainability factors that might otherwise make their company more profitable. So that's where we have a chance to partner with them. And we really start from a materiality perspective first. We think about what we know will be the factors that will be consistent across the board, like decarbonization, which will always be something to take into account for any given company. And then we also layer on top of that a materiality analysis. What are the most material factors for that given company, depending on the sector that they work in, the region in which they're based? And that might then highlight real areas and bring to the fore opportunities for us to work with them to help magnify those opportunities. So a great example of this is a chance for a company to set a decarbonization plan that would then allow them to get access to an entirely new value chain. In many cases, we're seeing these very large companies, for example, an Apple, who might look to integrate tech companies or business service companies into their value chain, but they would only do so if they have net zero or decarbonization plans. So this is really enabling a lot of our companies to get access to better markets and better opportunities. But it really has to be a bespoke fit because we know that each one of them has their own business model that we need to sort of maximize.
And are you starting to see opportunities where new companies, new founders are actually building companies with this at the core to begin with as well? It's not just a layer that's being sort of applied on top.
Absolutely. I think there are some really exciting companies that are building circularity models into their businesses, for example, that are understanding how they can take Sorry.
That's okay. Start the answer again.
Sorry,
it's fine. We'll pick it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want me to ask it again? Will that help?
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we're seeing some companies that are really maximizing the opportunities. For example, we have a company in our portfolio that has really integrated circularity as a core concept into their entire business model. And that's just germane to their entire existence. And I think then that makes them that more attuned to other opportunities, such as continuing to decarbonize their manufacturing processes, for example, or thinking about their workforce. But I will say that even a company that hasn't necessarily been built on those principles, the more that we can do our job to showcase those opportunities to the management team to say, should you think about decarbonizing your model? There's all these cost-saving opportunities. Should you think about ways to engage your workforce if it's a human capital-centric business in particular? That there will be multiple benefits, not only from an outside-in perspective, but certainly from inside the workforce themselves.
So E, very important in Europe, but we're seeing the S coming to the fore more perhaps in the States.
Yes. I think the sort of pickup of or leaning into one environmental or social factor over another in certain regions, it has a lot to do with both the societal pressures or expectations in that given region, and also, frankly, where regulation is going. That's a huge driving factor. So there's no doubt that the European Commission unto itself, but certainly individual European country governments have really doubled down on environmental considerations, and particularly on climate change and decarbonization. So that has really driven the region in a very specific direction. Whereas I think in the US, obviously, we've seen huge social movements over the course of the last number of years. I think the consideration of competitiveness in hiring and the desire to attract the most capable talent has a lot to do with focusing on S factors. And the focus on diversity is, of course, incredibly important for everyone, but there's no doubt that that has really risen to the fore in the US. And so I imagine we'll see these sort of peaks in certain areas, and over time, particularly as regulation continues to expand, it might smooth a bit over time so that there's sort of consistent application.
You talked there about talent acquisition and obviously the best talent being attracted to companies that are doing the right thing.
Yes.
Do you think we'll see more of that, and that will be a big factor for companies, that if they're not, if they haven't got that at the core, the best graduates are just not going to want to work?
I think so. I think that's just inherently part of this story. We see this next generation coming up, and the most capable and talented of these young people are looking for, sure, huge opportunities for themselves, for their futures and their career paths, but there's no doubt that this consideration of environmental and social factors has to be part of that picture for their commercial futures. That there's no longer this perception that you might have a job and that's how you earn your income, and then you can do something nice for society or for humanity over here. That these things need to be inextricably linked, partly because these kids, they're not all kids, young people, are seeing the effects of that not being done well in previous generations. And so they really have this driving force. It's changing a lot.
And that will really change the whole dynamic of this industry,
Absolutely.
won't it, as well, and reputationally be a good thing potentially.
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think we're certainly seeing on the consumer side decisions being made by this generation about who and who they will source from or buy from, and who they will not. And I think the more that the understanding of where the financial world and the investment world fits into that, there will likewise be decisions being made there.
So what are you most excited about, and what still needs to happen, and what would you like to see in this space in the next sort of 12 to 24 months now?
Oh gosh, there's a lot to be excited about. I think this idea of sustainability as an opportunity, as a source of value preservation and value creation, that's really what this is about. And I think there's been a lot of evolution and distraction about it being a nice to have or an add-on, but the more that we continue to prove that out and show that we're in fact building and supporting more resilient businesses that are more profitable and have more opportunity because they have really integrated these factors into their models, the more that this will be a sort of a self-evident idea. I mean, in a way, I'd love to work myself out of a job. I don't think we're quite there yet, but that would be the high ideal.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen, because then I won't get to chat to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been great to talk to you.
Thank you so much.